All right, we are set.
Okay. It is 6:59. I will call the meeting of the library board to order. Roll call.
All right, Chair Marie Hotta,
Here.
Vice Chair Andy Sakaris,
Here.
Maggie Burns,
Here.
Scott Gilbert,
Here.
Dina Phelps,
Here.
Austin Stryker.
Here.
We have City Council Member Chelsea Noonenkamp and Inglewood School Liaison Dwayne Tucker.
Present.
Excused, we have Bryn Dunning and Amy Wilson. Staff, we have Director Christina Underhill and Library and Cultural Arts Manager Bethany Lafferty. All right, thank you.
I don't think we have any public comments. So let's move on to reports.
Or approval of minutes.
Oh,
Yep.
minutes. Let's do the approval of minutes.
Yes.
Approval of minutes.
All right, would you guys like me to share the minutes on the screen on that, or is everybody?
Yeah, I would love that if you could.
Yeah.
Anyone want to approve the minutes?
I will move to approve the minutes.
Are we good?
You know, let's see, hold on. There. Okay. Okay. All right. All right, now, okay, I'm going to have to unshare for a sec. Well, I can't. So after I screen share, then it will bring up where I can. Oh, that's right.
All right.
I still move to approve.
Oh. Okay. Let's vote to approve the minutes. Who's in favor? Okay. Okay, now let's do the statistical report.
Okay. So bear with me as I wish I had a magnifying glass. Okay, so I look starting at the top, the days of service is 3 less than last year, but I think that's attributed to the Sunday closure. And then physical visitors increased quite a bit over last year. The website page views and was down a little bit for like the general website and just down a little bit for the catalog. The total reach for Facebook was down quite a bit, but I'm also thinking that that might be because people are coming in person more than relying on online communication. Total patrons registered increased a bit. And there was an increase there on the Englewood patrons. The collection, it didn't really grow much, but I do understand that there's been weeding projects underway in various areas, both the adult and children's collection. So as new things come in, old things go out. not a huge amount of growth, but that's kind of good. And then the whole Marmot collection is sort of the same thing. It kind of went down just a little bit, but I imagine across the board, that's kind of the same thing as everybody takes a look at their collections. Our meeting room sessions over last year, it definitely increased. There's a lot more reservations coming in for the meeting rooms, and same with the study room sessions. I don't think that they were even doing study rooms maybe last year at this time. So that always looks like a big jump. The holds are lower over last year, but again, I think this is the theme, is that now that people can come in and browse, they don't have to request as much stuff in advance, but an increase in total circulation, so that's good to see as well. Not a lot of growth on the digital usage, but I kind of think that too is, again, people are able to come in person and get physical items that they might not have gotten before. And then that total circulation of all materials is an increase. So that's a good thing to see. The information services, this is an area that I actually wanted to talk a little bit in depth about questions answered, because it kind of came to my attention that the number that's being recorded for this is very narrowly defined what gets recorded. So that not every patron interaction or assist that staff are giving to patrons are being recorded. And I talked with some of the staff about how they felt about that. And we all kind of agree that it does seem to undervalue the service that staff are providing, because it's not just about like classic reference questions. It's about helping people with the computers, showing them how to utilize things in the library, like the printer and the copier, how to find books on the shelf, answering questions on the phone about programming, things like that nature. So going forward, you're going to see what looks like a really drastic increase in this area, because we are going to start recording all service interactions that we're encountering with patrons, because I think that will give a truer reflection of how busy the staff are communicating and assisting patrons on the library floor and on the phone. So
I think there was some change in that, if my memory serves me, that like there was a point where the bathroom was being recorded too often, and so
Yeah.
and we're trying to cut down from those. So.
The other thing that I learned about from Nancy Trim, who is the director of our Venus Library in Littleton, is that I think it was the state library, she said, offers an online tool for recording those types of service statistics that can help us provide more detail, so that, and since it's electronic, you just kind of do a little radio button or like just click something and it records your kind of clicks in different categories. So we could say this is how many directional questions, how many technology questions. And Celine has experience using this tool when she worked at Venus years ago, that she said there was also kind of space to help kind of quantify the amount of time spent on interactions as well. So that I'm going to be looking into that as a tool to use, so that it's not just, I mean, because just saying questions answered, yeah, that is pretty generic. And having a little bit more detail to break down what types of questions are being answered, because yeah, maybe we don't want to include all the directionals, but there's so many questions and interactions that are not being recorded that are of value. So that will increase. Probably even next month, you'll see a pretty big jump on that, I think. And then the internet usage, computer usage is increased by double pretty much. I think that was due to all the computers being available, the time frame for turning people over on the computers. They're definitely have, every day I go out there, they almost all seem like they're in use at certain times of day. They're definitely mostly in use. Volunteer hours was blank for all of you, and so I apologize. I just found where to get this information this morning, so you can just pencil in and I can provide an updated electronic copy later. That 21 hours of volunteering was completed, just from 3 volunteers too, which is actually pretty good from 3 people during April. And I have received just in the last week at least 3 or 4 different emails of new volunteer applications. So hopefully that we'll be growing that a little bit more and having some more volunteers in. We do have an intern. Wonder if does that count as volunteer hours? I wonder. What's that?
They're not getting paid.
Yeah, so I should probably start, he just started last week on Wednesday, so that'll be, you know, I'll start including that for May. But yeah, we do have an intern from the local library school program who's gonna be working with us a couple days a week, helping out with various projects.
He's at a DU, right?
Yes, yeah. And then children's programming, really good attendance for just, 4 fewer programs than last year. So that was really good. And then there was more outreach being done. And so the overall total, more programs, including the in-house and outreach, and really good attendance. Yeah, twice as much as last year. So that's really good. About the same for young adult, just 1 more than last year, but increased in attendance. They didn't do any teen outreach, although there is some stuff going on this month with outreach to the middle and high school to promote summer reading. Adult programs, there were 21 programs last month. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of miscommunication, I think, in how to and where to record attendance numbers. So we didn't have the attendance numbers for those adult programs. But I am working on improving the communication for where to record it and when to check kind of programs, even programs that we're not necessarily leading. But we have a presenter for, just making sure to check in about 15, 20 minutes in, so we get a good count of the participants. And then that last bit is just all the programs together, in-house and outreach, which is all an increase over last year, which is good. I was not really sure about revenues deposited to the city, so I don't know. Yeah, that one was something that Selena and I were trying to work out, so I didn't quite get that part. So overall, pretty good. There's still definitely some transition that we're working through in the library. And that kind of just rolls right into the action plan.
Do you guys have any questions on the numbers?
Yes, sorry, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's, but yes, and we'll have some more detail about that. Yeah, any other questions about the statistics at all? Mhm.
Programmatic standpoint and sort of an internal signage and sort of future planning state as we start thinking about that kind of sort of what are the number ones, number two is sort of this question is, I don't think I would put a lot of time and investment in sort of for the board report, but I think for keeping it as we envision what this is going to be in some kind of later state, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's why this like electronic tool will be really helpful, because we can input more detail that will just automatically save things for us instead of trying to put something on paper or create our own kind of recording tool. So I'm really looking forward to kind of getting more detail about that. And it's supposed to be a free resource, which is great. So. Okay. So the action plan is, I believe Debbie mentioned in her email when she sent this out, there's not a lot of detail in terms of an update, because April was definitely very much a transition still with staff coming and going. The only really new things I believe are under children's services, about the continued work on the education resources collection, how they've shifted the books and made space for the materials that are getting, the new materials that are getting cataloged to go into the collection. And then there were some existing materials that are getting re-cataloged to be part of that area. So they've got a pretty good space available for that. And then they started some more outreach to show support to, oh no, that's not that one. That was from March too. Oh, I guess that was the only one, was just that thing. But the things to kind of highlight for upcoming, because there were so many things I kept wanting to add, but technically they were in May. So there is just a lot of, things that are coming up to report next month that has been happening already. The visits to the schools to promote summer reading, participation at Celebrate Englewood last weekend, which was really great and had a good turnout. And then there are some, I think it was, the in-house or the library hours and services kind of study. That's going to begin as soon as we reopen on Sundays. We're going to start collecting different data and compiling that for the remainder of the year to start looking at that stuff. So that's going to all be starting this month. And
We did kick out the survey already.
oh yeah, I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
that's also May.
Yeah, so that was something else that I put together for Celebrate Englewood, and we're going to kind of have available for people to access here. And then I was going to try to do some other points outside of the library to try to get people. It's just an informal survey to get a sense of how frequently people visit, and there's a question about the day of the week that they visit or would like to visit. That's kind of how I phrase it. When would you likely, visit the library? And then there's something about how frequently they use online versus in-person services, or is it more equal? And then invited them to add any additional comments and leave their email if they wanted to follow up with other things. So that's just kind of an informal thing to just get some feedback from the community. And I think there was something else that I wanted to comment about, and I didn't mark it in here. Oh, I think it might be about for the outreach services. I'm getting on board with everything. I've been talking to some of the staff about things that they wanted to expand upon, ideas Michelle had just in the works and was beginning, and if there was any other things that they want to pursue. So we're having conversations to come up with some ideas of how we can grow some of the outreach kind of for the adult population. So that's all stuff that's underway this month. So just a little highlight of what to look forward to next month. Any questions about any of this?
Yeah, when we were talking about the survey, Howard, if the hours are going to expand, but if people have become accustomed to Sunday closures, I think a potential flaw I see in the survey is people tend to be creatures of habit. And if people are accustomed to coming in midweek or Saturdays or something, you ask people, when are you likely to come in? They're likely to, I think, more likely to stay in the schedule.
Right, true. So, although I will say a few of the responses I've gotten so far did indicate Sundays. So the Saturdays and Sundays. And if they do it electronically, and even on the print version, because I have a electronic and a print version of the survey, it does indicate, check all that apply, check all the times you might possibly want to come to the library. So Sunday is definitely being checked. Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. It seems like there's sort of a inherent flaw that if people aren't already coming because they're used to it, are they going to start coming in? I have a feeling it will take a little while to get people coming back on Sundays, especially as we get into the summer, when people might, go out of town a little bit more frequently on the weekend. But I would anticipate that it would increase as the new school year starts back up again in the fall. But I think it's good to have the information because it might be a thing where we see, yeah, during the summertime, it doesn't get used a lot on Sundays, but during the school year, it does get used a lot. And maybe we have a summertime set of hours and a 9-month school year set of hours. That's a common format for a lot of public libraries that I've seen. So it's not posted anywhere online, and that might be something that maybe we will push that out through the Facebook page to put it there, because we had little flyers with the printed link and a QR code printed on it that we had at the event on Saturday, and then we had a paper version that a few people filled out that Kimberly had collected. But yeah, that's a good suggestion. I'll make sure that we do that.
It's a self-selecting survey.
Yeah,
not random.
right,
So it's
right.
really more like
It's just kind of informational. It's not like statistically valid or anything scientific, but just like anecdotal. Yeah,
More information in that format than we've gotten ever since I've been on the board, so I'm really glad that you like took that and ran with it.
yeah. Yeah, and I think we were the leftovers we didn't print anymore, but there was a bunch left over from the event that Kimberly still had that she hadn't had taken out of her car and hadn't reloaded. So we're just waiting for her to get those back. But I have the master copy that I can print. But that was our intention, is to make it available here in the building too, for people to complete either on paper or by using the QR code.
I think I know that the Instagram is small, but anyone can go like on Instagram now too. So it's worth looking on.
Oh, okay.
Instagram story.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Once you have it, you sure you get it out to us.
Yeah.
Sure. I can send it. Yeah, I can send it to all of you just via email. Yeah.
I don't think there's anything we need to attend to tonight.
Kimberly's not here, so.
Yeah, there we go.
Just kidding.
All right, so we got the whole business and that would be.
Okay, so it's not called a code of conduct. It's like it has a different title than the original kind of code of conduct for the library, because this is for the whole city. And I'm blanking on what it's called. It's something about behavior, something like that.
Behavior.
Yeah. Oh, that's maybe what's what it is, standards of behavior. So in addition to rolling out that new document, we now have like 2 levels of kind of recording tools. The first one is a form called rule violation, proof of verbal warning. So this is a form that we would fill out, and it indicates the issuer gave the recipient above a verbal warning. And it has a variety of different kind of infractions of that standards of behavior. And so this isn't really meant to be given to somebody, because we're giving them the verbal warning. We record the details on this form. And then I believe it's to be.
This helps build a case for when that verbal warning, we have a change of staff, oh, we've issued that person 3 verbal warnings already, probably won't be that many, restructure, that kind of thing. Now the staff know we're moving to the next step.
Yeah, and it's just paper right now. And I believe that we would also record it. Do we record a copy of this with the city attorney's office to let them know we're using this tool? And then what I discovered today is that in conjunction with this, the patron incident tracking system PITS that we have just for the library, we can scan this document and upload it into a PITS report, so that we can kind of have dual documentation for our encounters here in the library. So that's something that we would use for that. And this is really for when we're like asking somebody to like stop a certain behavior, leave the library for the day kind of thing. And we want to formally record the behavior, so that we have PITS that we've been using already in the library, but then this is something that would be recorded with the city that will give more weight to any further infractions that we may encounter, to kind of say this is a pattern of behavior. Yeah, this one is the verbal, proof of verbal warning is the first form. The other one is called notice of ejection or / exclusion. And this has a variety of choices, well, 2 choices. It's ejection for 24 hours or exclusion for a variety of different time frames. So there's 45 days, 60 days, 90 days. 120, 180, or other. And the days are kind of set by what type of violation it is, because the standard of behavior has different tiers of behavior. And if you violate a certain one, it's just maybe a lesser infraction, but if it's one of the higher tiers, that's a more serious infraction. The other part with the ejection exclusion document is that there is a 4-day period after the issuance of this to an individual for them to appeal the process. And it's an additional 3 days if this is mailed to somebody. So like 7 if you send it in the mail. But if it's handed to them, just 4 days. And so it's not likely in our experience in the library that if we issue something like this to somebody, it's unlikely that they will go through the appeals process, but it has to be made available.
Like somebody at the rec center probably would go through this process if they were to receive one of those. It's a little bit different setup with memberships, and all that than you are. Here, even when we did trespass, it was never challenged. It could be. But
and then, the other thing I wanted to note was on the verbal warning, it does also indicate this is for like the person completing the form. Should you or the public feel unsafe, immediately call 911. So it has been reiterated to staff that if at any time something feels just really wrong or dangerous, or you don't feel like you are equipped to handle the situation, call 911. And we had a little security training last week with an officer at the police department where he reiterated the same thing. If you're just uncertain on how to handle something that feels kind of out of your, area of expertise or experience, that's what they're there for, call them. So that's really good that we have that reassurance. So again, this is the form, the ejection form would be something that we would complete and give a copy to the person to notify them that you have been, excluded from the library for this time period for this infraction and recorded with the city. And then I would imagine we would also make a copy to include in our PIT system to keep track of any, escalating behaviors or things like that. So that it's all kind of together. And I did, as I was able to review PITs today, multiple reports for the same person are grouped together. So you can see this person has a history of several incidences. And so having all of that documentation together, in addition to the strength of these forms, would help if there were any, criminal charges that were filed against the person. And so this stuff, we just got the final version of this. I don't know if it was last week or the week before. Was it my first week we got these? I can't remember.
Yeah, before you started.
And so I will be, now that I have gotten access to PITs and can demonstrate how people can, if they need to do this, how do they utilize it with PITs, this will get rolled out to the library staff pretty much tomorrow, starting with our security associates and then the other full-time staff and then the associates, kind of as I see them all, just doing a little bit of one-on-one explanation. These hard copies will be available, easily available at the desk location, so nobody has to like find it and print it out or look, they'll have it like at their fingertips if they need to fill one out. And that's pretty much it, unless there's anything else I might have missed with that.
This is a much more thorough process than our previous trespass ordinance that we had. And what's been great is through the training we went through with PD last week, they have been getting trained as well. So we're all kind of learning together how this is going to work at a city level, not just library level. Yeah, and it was nice with PD. They worked with the staff on even self-defense beyond just how to use your words and all of that. But it was a really great training. It was really nice. They stepped up and took us on literally. So it was good.
That issue, how
Calling 911?
Yeah, calling 911. How often is a delayed response from police?
I don't know here. And so in the almost 2.5 weeks I've been here, the only time I've been present for somebody calling the police was actually just this past Saturday when technically the library was closed. But there was, I was here with TJ, our security associate, for a group upstairs to let them have access to the room. And there was just a person outside that was just kind of, rattling the doors and had a bunch of suitcases and bags and stuff like that. And we're just kind of, I don't know that that's necessarily a library thing. That was just a building thing, and TJ had to be here, so he did call to have dispatch come by. But I don't know. I can't really speak to any delayed response for this particular location. Because no one has had to call 911 since I've been here. So I can say from my previous experience, sometimes there would be a delay, but not anything that was really impactful on the library's end, because if we had a serious situation, then we would be bumped up. Because if we had, a threat of violence or something else happening, that would make it a more serious call. So I don't think that there's the likelihood of there being that level of seriousness is probably pretty small. That most interactions we can hang on with for anywhere from like 15 minutes, if that's the delay.
We've had a few in 911 and no officers showed. We found out later there was a bank robbery and there's other things going on, and the dispatchers have been really good about telling us that. We've got a backlog of calls. They do ask those questions of the seriousness. They have cameras. The dispatchers do log into our cameras and they watch what's going on, so they can see. It's a scary situation when somebody's screaming at the top of their lungs and yelling words that you would never want to repeat to your grandma. And there's people everywhere. You may have kids in the library, and the staff are trying to calm the situation down. And that's hard sometimes to tell on the cameras, how loud it's getting. But for the most part, PD is really good about sending an officer. They've also been really great about sending co-responders. And that's really what we need more than officers most times, is a co-responder, because many times the individuals we're dealing with need other assistance, not just we don't want people thrown in cuffs and dragged out the front door, but we do want the situation to move on, because it's not the right place to be yelling at the top of your lungs. Go to the amphitheater and put on a performance. So it's hit and miss, and the chief has been great at communicating and letting us know, we are priority, but there are going to be times that they just might not be able to get here as quickly as we would like. If you've ever been in a situation that's a little scary and it's lasting 3 minutes or more, you're sitting there and your adrenaline's going, and that was part of the training too, of like, how do you stay calm? How do you disengage? How do you leave the situation but keep everybody else safe? So it was a very good training that I think will help the staff. And there's only 5 of us that went, but we're planning on putting on smaller trainings for the rest of the staff, so they understand, so they don't have to be nervous or as nervous in situations that can be scary. Yep. Yeah, that's what these ones are. Yeah.
Stuff I've never been clear on, I've asked a couple of times. During the appeal period, right? If someone has been ejected from the library or put on one of these lists, do they have that 4 to 7 day period to just keep coming back to the library during that time?
I think yes, they could, because it's kind of like jury trial. You're innocent until proven guilty.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't put it to the test yet to know for sure what that's going to look like. Like I said, in the past, when somebody got trespassed, we never saw them again, or they didn't see them for a long time. And so this is going to be an interesting process to see. Until we get somebody that actually appeals it, we won't really know what that's going to look like. But yes, they could return. And they could return. And we've had patrons who are very disruptive one day, and we ask them to leave. And then they come back for the next 2 weeks straight in a row, and they're great and they're nice and they've apologized to staff or whatever. And it's like, okay. So it's just, some people have bad days.
I was surprised last when you described, there were two incidents the day of our last meeting. One was where a guy like used his head to break the computer keyboard into, and another guy who came and urinated in a trash
Yeah.
can in the library. I was surprised because it resulted in 30 and 90 days. I mean, to me, it felt light, you know, I mean,
Sure.
if I were here with my grandkids and somebody urinated in a trash can, and so you described the sort of graduated series of different exclusion periods. Is that driven by the city attorney's office?
Yeah, because that is sort of designed by the standards of behavior tiers that are laid out in that. So just,
You can pick one of the.
yeah, and you know what, I should have brought one of those in here. They're on a big 11 by 17 paper, so I didn't bring that with me. Sure, yeah. But just for example, like, so the 45-day exclusion is for a tier 1 violation and no prior exclusions in the past 3 years. 60 days is a tier 1 violation with 1 prior exclusion from any city property in the last 3 years. So it's kind of like it in the exclusion amount of the days excluded increases based on the violation and previous violations. So it does take all of that into consideration. So that's how it arrives at those other days.
Yeah,
Numbers.
But yeah, that breakdown, that would be really good.
And you have to keep in mind too, this is just excluding from the library. If it's a criminal activity, it's another process. Now PD takes that over. So like public urination, I think is a misdemeanor. Jails aren't accepting, I think they are now taking people, but before, you know, the last 2 years, we couldn't do much with that. They just say, please leave. Now we have this, so we can say, hey, you can't come back to the library for 90 days because you just peed in our trash can, and here's PD. You're now getting a charge for public urination. So it's stacking up. I feel like the library police have better power than we have the last couple of years to really enforce better behavior, and having in-house security too, that has made a world of difference. TJ and the other security guards and even the staff have got to know a lot of our patrons. And when you can call somebody by their first name, a lot of times you see the de-escalation already start happening. So it's been very beneficial. Yeah. You want to see it so you know how to get your 90 day. Which one can I do? Yeah, that's your punishment.
Yeah, it's not even nearly as close to not any of this. So, I clearly I see this is written to make sure that the city doesn't sue.
Correct.
But I'm glad that it's to hear that it's helpful. I am concerned at how many steps there are in this process, and I don't know how many violations you're sort of seeing, but I would just say this seems like it could take a significant amount of time. I think it's also good to take a significant amount of time to document, but I think just keeping an eye on it. If we're doing 3 or 4 of these a day, if each of them are taking 15, 20 minutes, I think just that's a significant part.
Yeah,
of
and I feel like we would be more, like, the thing I can anticipate we might do more frequently is the verbal warning form. And this one can be done kind of after the fact, not necessarily in the moment. So you don't have to give it to the person we're giving the warning to. It's just a tool to help us record that this verbal warning was given. I feel like this is probably going to be more heavily used than the other form, but it's good to have it there. By no means do I think it's anything that's going to be a daily or even a weekly occurrence. But it's good to have those tools in place and have them available to back up escalating behavior, which sometimes I think too is like you might feel like you have somebody that's escalating their behavior and they're problematic, but that's also sort of like, it sounds really kind of weird, but like the getting to know you kind of period where they're just seeing how much they can push us, and if we're gonna be wishy-washy on enforcing the rules or something like that, and what our expectations of behavior. It really, I mean, it is. And so sometimes that's been my experience too, is that you might have people that really just like for a couple couple weeks in a row, like they come a few times a week and they're just really pushing it. But eventually you're going to hit this mark where you think you know each other and they're just going to go about their business, do what they need to do and follow the rules. It's just, they just want to kind of push a little bit. So
Since, much of the idea here is documenting bad behavior and building a case, to what extent can people find you that way, just not the one
I don't know. And I mean, and that's the thing too, is like, if it's an egregious enough, interaction too, I've had incidences where we didn't get a name or anything, but it was, still police were called, a description was given, and they might find them nearby and pick them up, and then they get details. And that doesn't always trickle back to us sometimes, I think, because we, I think there are ways to know who people are. Like, for example, with the computer use for our purposes, we can see who's logged into a computer. If they're behaving erratically and we don't know who they are, there's a way to look at what card they're logged in. Now, of course, it could sometimes be somebody else's, but I would imagine more often than not, it's their own card, and we can gain their name that way. And it's a place to start to say this person like totally freaked out and then logged off and left. But we were able to capture what their, library card number was from the login software. So that's kind of a tactic I've used a lot in the past at my previous library. That helps a lot. Because then too, if they're not forthcoming with their name, the next time I see them, I might be like, oh, hey Joe, how you doing today? And they're like, you know me? I think she knows me, and it's just kind of, then you start making that connection.
So we have cameras here and then we've utilized that system to take like a screenshot of an individual. We don't know their name, but want to make sure their staff know, hey, this individual did this through our PITS program that we have. And so there's other ways to get descriptions if we don't have names. And yeah, PD even said that if you can get the best details of that individual, we'll do some drive-arounds, and if we find them, then we'll stop them and get some more information.
And the cameras definitely are invaluable. I didn't realize that this facility was, decked out in cameras until I started. But I mean, the library I came from, if we had only had cameras, like the protection we could have had for staff and the physical property would have been tremendous. So it's a really great tool.
Are there types of programs that you see in transit, like different using the computer more than others, or difference inherently just basically rest, or people?
I think that definitely sleeping and kind of like getting too comfortable in the furniture sometimes is a problem. We had a gentleman raise this window seat out here earlier today, just repeatedly had to be asked to, sit up and not be sleeping. And ultimately we just had to ask him to leave for the day because he just wouldn't comply. And he left fine. And he, as TJ was asking him, telling him that he needed to pack up and go, the guy was like, okay, yeah, no problem. I just needed to get some rest. And he's like, yeah, well, you got it. But like, it's just not, I mean, I know it's often tucked away, but it's still just not an attractive site for people using the library to see. So that's probably one of the bigger things, is trying to get people to comply with that, staying awake, not stretching out, and like getting their stuff everywhere. And computers can definitely be problematic, like elicit problematic behavior, because whatever they're looking at sometimes will set them off. And but yeah, so that sometimes happens. And I think also with cell phone usage, sometimes we just have to, ask people to, take your call outside, like if they're having a fight or something with somebody on the phone. But I don't know. I've only been here for a couple of weeks, so I haven't witnessed any really outwardly just dramatically bad behavior or treatment to staff. There was somebody, I guess, like last week that was complaining about the carpeting being done and complaining about the workers and was pretty rude. But he was asked to leave. That just, can't insult the work crew and just shout, racist things, you know, in the library. So it was just disruptive in general. So that was probably the only one I think, I guess, that happened. That was last week.
Going back to the questions asked part of this report, would these kind of interactions be something that is part of recording that? Is there?
I wouldn't, no, I mean,
Okay.
no, but that certainly could be like a separate
Yeah.
thing that we kind of keep track of, is like, how many incidents did
I
we have
think
this
that would
week?
be.
And that would
It doesn't
probably,
necessarily have to be us. But for,
yeah, and I
for-
think that's all kind of record keeping done through PIPs, and like, that's the
Okay.
purpose of having that tool.
Okay.
Is that can show us how many incidents that we're having, is it always somebody different, is it the same couple people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know about the legality of it.
Well, we can probably like include a number, like we have
Yeah.
6 trespasses. I don't, you
Yeah.
know, but we can keep it high level and maybe it was just verbal warnings, because we'll be tracking those. And if we do an exclusion or whatever, we can track that, just number wise. We don't have to
Yeah.
give specifics.
Like concerns in January with like the safety
Mhm.
of the staff and closures. I think that's just valuable information for
Yeah, sure.
us to know, so that we like know how reasonable some, like, or how valid some of the questions that we're wondering about are.
Yeah.
I think it goes hand in hand too with like the survey of, well, you know, when do you use the library? How do you use the library? Will you ever use the library or not? You know,
Yeah.
and then we look at what type of incidents we're having. If this library ever gets renovated or moved, it's like, what are the true services people are looking for? You know, we talked about when we were having, it became kind of a day shelter for some months there. You know, does this part of the library now become closed off from the rest and it's now a community center, a resource center? Is that really important to partner with the library or not? So I think looking at kind of this holistic picture of really what's happening in our community, what's the purpose of the library in this particular community? How do we serve our residents and, you know, individuals that need our resources that we have the best and all of that. So it's a very large picture to kind of encompass and capture really the true picture of what the library is. Yeah, I'm excited to give this report since the last few months have been kind of doom and gloom. But so we've done interviews for the collection development specialists. Staff is making a decision hopefully this week on that. Our adult services librarian position has closed, and Beth has been reviewing those applications. And I think we have 7 at least to interview, which great qualified candidates, which is super exciting for that position. That's one we want to fill quickly because we have a lot of adult programs and we'll increase adult programs, and Beth shouldn't have to do them all. So we get that person hired. And then all our library associate positions are filled. So from a staffing position level, we're doing pretty well and looking good. So the library will be closed this weekend. They are knocking out the carpet really fast, faster than the original schedule, which is excellent. So May 16th will be fully reopened 7 days a week. So I appreciate you all suggesting maybe just close on the weekends, because if we had not done that, it'd be all the way till the end of May for the carpeting project. So we just knocked it out. We'll be fully reopened, hit the ground running May 16th. Yeah. I'm not gonna tell anybody.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. No, we'll do some social media posts. It'll be on the websites. We'll post back on the doors, like right now, it says the library's closed on the 2 weekends, just to get people back in the mindset that we're reopened. So, and share the word too. Stop on by. Come by after church. That would be great.
After church, they're gonna be so happy. A couple of times people are like, oh yeah, I gotta go pay my fees, or I gotta go and find this book, and like.
No, that.
Yeah. That reminds me of something a staff person told me today, that how they've been seeing, like on Mondays, people seem so excited and like hurry to get into the library on Monday mornings because they've been waiting to get in. And so I think there probably will be a decent amount of people that are happy to be able to just stop by, maybe pick up polls that came in on Friday that they couldn't get, something like that. So I think that there will be.
Today's
12 to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a blind. That's right.
I don't remember when it's all the, I think so, yeah. And many, like, most of the Denver libraries aren't open on Sundays. There's maybe like one or two, I think, that are, so that's going to be interesting too, to see the traffic. If a lot of other libraries are closed, are people gonna come here because we're open? So it's all good stuff to track. The people counters are working great. So that actually might be something we should add to the statistics, is kind of like daily counts.
Yeah.
We'll figure out how to.
I
report
actually
that.
thought that was something in here, but then I realized I think it was just the,
If you haven't had attendance for a while.
yeah,
That's true, yeah. Those weren't.
Look at
last
average.
fall.
yeah.
I think that'd be good to see, to kind of get an idea of, because the question's always been Sundays, like,
Yeah.
are people gonna show up? So, going forward. Yes, we had, thank you so much for coming in person. And thank you for attending online. Did anybody else jump on there? Did too, good. Good. Yeah, we're just looking for feedback. This is the first time the city has done something like this. And I feel like Parks and Rec Commission feedback, and then yours. I mean, we did talk about capital like this whole last year leading up to this, so you all had a good idea. And it's, our capital is competing with the city's capital for the library board, because it's all other facilities and other projects. It actually falls in the capital improvement project bucket. And so depending on what other items may or may not get funded, we may or may not get the funds for some of the security updates we're looking to do. But we'll see what happens. It was just, that was the kickoff. So if you have feedback, we would love it. Just so for future planning of something like this, I did appreciate they put library board and Parks and Rec in the beginning versus making us states after the enterprise funds went. So that I thought was nice. But I mean, if you found it valuable, let us know. If you're like, I don't know if I'd come again to something like that. That's good too. It's a good educational piece too, to learn about what's going on in the city and where money is going and what projects are coming up and all of that. So yeah. You can email myself or Debbie and just, whatever you want to share, and then we'll share that too with the team that organized the meeting, and we can make it better year after year. And I'll keep you updated too on that process as we find out how we get ranked. If we make it, and ours was only $50,000. Still a lot of money, but when you're competing against much higher dollar projects, it may get funding because it's a lower dollar project. And just, I'll do a quick update because it was safety related that we asked. So our crash door bars on the two main entrances are being updated this week. And we are putting lockdown buttons on those doors. So instead of staff having to go get keys to lock down, they just push the buttons, which I think is going to help a lot. And we're also waiting to get a quote back on ballistic coverings for some of the windows. I think the children's story time room is the one we're going to target. I hate that we're even talking about that, but makes sense just in case. It'd be a good location to have it, and possibly like these types of rooms we would do something with too. So if we ever had to go into a lockdown or had an active shooter in the building, you get all your patrons and put them in here, turn the lights off, lock the doors, and hope for the best. Hope that never happens. No, so
I was confused by that form, and then it said fill out some.
So we have submitted the memo from the library board. Amy signed off on it. We were really proactive. We were ahead of schedule. I had till June to do this. I think I said it back in April. So we're all set. And then what we can do moving forward to whether we get funded or not, we can continue to build a capital project list too. So as you see things and think of fun things or safety related, you can share those with us, and we'll just keep the list going. And if anything really sticks out that like we really want to do this, then that's what we can proceed with in future years.
I'm curious how much the loop of the library was
It's discussed. I know Councilmember Nunecamp had a very good question about like the carpeting. Like, is it worth even doing it knowing we could be moving and we don't know if it's going to be tomorrow? It won't be tomorrow. But in the next 5 years, it could never happen. We don't know really. There's a lot up in the air. And so I'm glad we moved forward with the carpeting. I think it gives the library a nice refresh, especially that we're kind of returning back to normal everything. But as far as some of the bigger things, like we may move forward with the study of safety exits to get a good idea for what that should look like. But it might be something we don't actually implement because now we know, oh, we're going to be moving across the street to a new location. So then we'll focus all those safety things on that. So the nice part about capital is, and this has happened with many projects, you might budget for it, but due to X, Y, and Z, maybe you don't implement it and it could roll to another year or future years or whatever else. And so it's not totally lost.
We have a conversation with people about it. If everything was best in there, we would be out of the next year. So it's anything from next spring to never.
Yeah. Okay. And if we move next spring, we're taking the carpet with us. Beautiful.
See an opportunity to design a library.
Right. Yeah, and it's hard to know. I think the proposal for the library is actually that old eye care center that's right across the street, that first floor. So it'd be existing, but again, there's so much up in the air. You could get a developer in here that just levels the whole area and then starts fresh, and then you do have a chance to design. But it's exciting to think about. It's also very stressful to think about moving everything somewhere else, but we'll roll with it. Yeah. Good. Do you enjoy it? What's it? Do you have anything you want to add?
I don't know. I've been actually thinking about it all day, and I'm like, oh, yeah.
How was your transition?
So it's been really great. Like everybody across the city has been really great and really helpful answering questions, and tons of people have stopped by purposely to like introduce themselves to me, which was really cool. So various people from like Parks and Rec and facilities people. So that's been really great. So it's definitely a very welcoming place to work. So I love that. The staff is fantastic. The thing I will say about the staff here is that from my very first day, like there's tons of stuff for me to just get acclimated to, just like knowing how the day goes and everybody's names and just all kinds of little things. And so while I'm trying to absorb all this information, the library is running just great. Like they know what they're doing and what needs to get done and when it needs to be done. And so that for me, it just makes me feel like really good about inheriting a staff that is working really well together. And there's only some like minor issues with like ironing out scheduling issues because we're moving to the Sundays. There was at least 3 other new hires, 2 the same day as me, 1 2 weeks prior. So all 4 of us are still kind of on a learning curve. So ensuring that those people are still getting the training that they need. But for the most part, and all the staff are happy to pitch in and help the new employees. They are all being very welcoming to the intern that I have, signed on to kind of supervise. I don't know. I get the sense that there's been some struggles within the staff over the last many months, and I'm really excited to help just kind of boost their, morale and, I don't know, and it's invigorating for me to be in this environment because I feel like my career has gotten a boost to come here because I'm actively working in a functioning library. So that's really great. And I just love it. It's been fantastic. Yeah. So I'm really enjoying myself. And there's a lot, I still feel like there's a lot of administrative pieces I'm getting into place. But I'm like slowly getting into, guiding some of the programming things. I'm really looking forward to these interviews to hire a librarian to take on, that stuff. And then we have the other position too, the the formerly known as Access Services Librarian that we're discussing kind of defining that role so that it's not so overlapping with adult services. And I have a lot of, things in mind that will just bolster all the services and things that we're offering here. So I'm excited. It's fun.
I think with all the turnover in the last year or two, like it's really great to hear that it is moving like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, it's been really good. And there's and we've actually even had more partners, potential partners approaching the library about Resource Connect. Like they're calling us to say, can you join in this? So that's cool. So we've got those things growing too, just without even trying. So it's nice to see.
Is a volunteer appreciation, so I'll be sending information out to you guys, but have it on your calendar. So 6:30. So families invited and everything's free.
Thanks, Debbie. I forgot about that. Yeah, good.
I have one quick question. I know we have one open board slot, I believe, and the youth board slot, is that correct? Or are those closed?
Applications, like a week or something, because I like to.
Okay. They're out.
What I just want to bring up is I think we just want to continue to try to increase the diversity of this committee. I mean, I think it's not the fact that we're 100% white, and I think it's as an LGBT member, I think diversity is going to be key, especially as we start planning for the future of the library. And so just a continued push to think about who would be good for recruitment. I know this is not, or the commissions in general tend to be white and affluent and have a lot of time, but I think it's really critical to reach communities that a lot of us don't have key access points into, that we really try to diversify sort of both the recruitment process and as folks on the council are sort of selecting folks. And then really over Dwayne, how do we get a youth advisory member and how we partner with the schools? I mean, I can ask the England School Board community.
Yeah, I think that hearing about the young adult programming and the volunteers and maybe I'll send a note to Kimberly and see if she has anyone who would like to nudge in that direction.
So my understanding is we do have a youth member.
Cool.
And on our application,
There was one and I met with Argent on the board, and how we can encourage the school to be familiar with board information, be free to practice on them. Since the board, applications and resumes and life experience, and then how we work with like our teachers to engage them on the process. And we're actually having a conversation right now in terms of about a whole youth advisory commission fully. Members, but that's not what as well. So, like
I would encourage you to listen to the library children's staff with that conversation after it moves forward. They really do have, they're like a cohort who's very active. I'm not gonna be here in June. I will be having on virtually, but.
Just get ready for it. Here's your commitment. You think we came with no cancel and you're on. Jeez. My fault.
Is there any interest to go virtually versus in person?
If that makes sense. If you're done, then you could post.
Okay, virtual and Teams.
Don't worry. Sorry about that.
Austin, do you want to talk about your board involvement?
Yeah, I would love to. I just wanted to make a formal resignation from my seat on the board and to take a minute to thank everyone, not just for their time and involvement with myself, but in general with the board and for the library and our community overall. I just wanted to apologize for the few meetings that I had missed. I have a business partner that's battling some illness right now, and it's put a few extra responsibilities on my shoulders, but I also want the board to receive the time and focus that it deserves from its board members. So I wanted to do the right thing and to step out of my position.
Yeah, thanks, Austin.
Be able to get Austin. Process. Remember, it will be on July, the 1st of July. Okay, good. So we won't be having a virtual chapter, not how better to do that. Remember, yeah.
Well, good luck with your business, Austin.
Dwayne, do you have anything that you want to add in from the school district?
Yeah, just a couple things. Thank you for a little bit of airtime. Andy, to your point about a youth member on the library board, we are looking at a way to add some more participation from students with the board and on some committees and things like that. So I can certainly include this board as an opportunity for students. So I'll keep you posted if we can find someone that would be interested in doing that. Would there be a process to do that? Could we just, if a student is interested, or would you like to go through maybe an interview process with a student? What would that look like for this board?
Regular for college.
Yeah, they would have to apply to be a youth board member.
Okay.
And it sounds like they do have to go through the interview process with city council, but it might be good to build a kind of a list of individuals that are interested, especially if a possible youth commission may be started. That would be excellent to have them on that. And, but yeah, they would have to go through the whole application process.
Okay, good. And then we're getting close. We're less than 2 weeks from the both high school graduation ceremonies. So those are both on the 21st. I also want to say thank you. I had to miss the meeting last month because of a board conflict, but I wanted to tell the entire library staff, thank you, and what a fantastic job you did hosting the art show again. So nice to have that event in person again. And I've been to many of those, and it was by far the best art show we've ever done. So kudos to the entire library staff for hosting that amazing event again. And then the other thing, we've had a couple of sessions on our next 5-year strategic plan. We're kind of at the front end of that, but our goal is to have that released at the first of the year, January 1st. So we will be reaching out to every stakeholder group in Englewood, including those within the school and those not part of the school district, either as parents or just citizens of Englewood. So more information to follow on that, and we would love all of you to participate in that strategic planning process with us on focus groups or other ways. We would very much value your input on that, but stay tuned. There'll be some more information on timing and dates and things like that. So yeah, with that, I think those are the updates from the school board. Thank you.
Like the access sample,
No, that we gonna learn about the constitutional use and session happening in the next couple of weeks. And I appreciated the robust conversation tonight about the new exclusion and test ordinance. Yeah, it was something that we passed it, that we spent a lot of time discussing what's the right balance between the workable for staff, but also doesn't put us down for like the state. And there was a lot of conversation around some of the time of like, how long can these things be to determine what's really looking at other municipalities, like what is the standard, what's the precedent that's been set, and how can we put ourselves in the best position? So I'm really eager to hear how it works. Like, the beauty of it is if it's not okay to fix it.
Yeah.
But really looking forward to getting that.
Yeah,
feedback.
I mean, it could potentially take time for us to get to a point where we need to use these, you know. So who knows?
The good news
Could be tomorrow.
Let us have some.
Right, exactly.
Not fully ready to work. So just to put it in the context of where the city at and what it is. So really eager to hear your feedback on what you think is the biggest challenge. We should know that everything will be different. But it's really, really helpful to hear feedback. So I really appreciate your time. And I have thoughts about how we can step forward and push about the success in that process, but they still think we need to do differently. So I think more of that feedback as well. No? It's a clear order, and we will be virtual.
Good to hear everyone.
and then next is your last one.
No, I think we're going to do January.
Okay.
It's like